right, welcome back to another episode of Bet GPT. We are checking in here on episode 15. Slade, how has the time flown by, man? 15 episodes. I feel like we're veterans at this point.
Yep, it's just coming. It's coming easy to us now. We don't even need scripts or anything. We just roll.
No, it's not like we have another screen where we have all our talking points. We definitely just rolls right off the tongue for sure. Yeah, so we really enjoyed football this past weekend. We hope you guys did as well. We wanted to quickly run through our six pack from last week, and then we'll just start breaking down the NFL games, the major college games. Then we'll try to touch on a little baseball at the end. Am I missing anything, Slade? Or does that sound good?
No, just before we start, I just want to say, doing a podcast and having all of your opinions documented, it's a beautiful thing, and also sometimes it's gonna come back and bite you in the ass. But you roll with the dubs and you take your L's as medicine, and it's fine, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the only way we can gain trust in people is we have to be really transparent
Yeah,
and
we're
show them our
losing
thoughts.
purpose, so that way you guys know we're legit. Actually, we're, we're shows we're credible.
Exactly. Okay. So the six pack for last week. We'll go through it one by one here. First one, you had Utah -6.5 against Baylor. Um, it wasn't pretty, but Utah did manage to pull away. I think they scored 2 touchdowns over the last 3.5 minutes of the game.
Yep, the gambling gods paid us back for some of the tough beats last week.
Yeah. So nice job buying a point as well.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say that's why you buy the point. We would have lost if it weren't for that point. That's the difference between it was still only -156, so we still decent odds, but it all worked out.
yeah, I will say with buying points too, I'm more of an advocate of buying points with the NFL games rather than college, just because college can be so high scoring and a little erratic. But if you are gonna buy points, you need to buy the 6.5, 7, and the three,
Hmm.
3.5.
Yeah,
If
there's
you're
no
bu-
point buying between 4 and 5 points. It's got to be
yeah,
around that touchdown range or a field goal range.
even if it's a blowout, I still don't love 21 and 21.5, just because the odds of it exactly landing on 21 aren't
Yeah, the
great.
backdoor covers always make you nervous too.
Yeah. So want to know there. Next up, you had Vikings covering 5.5 against the Bucks. Um, I
Yeah.
guess we can. Do you want to talk about that game now, or do you want to talk about it when we go into the NFL?
We can talk about it now. Basically, I put my faith in Baker Mayfield playing worse than Kirk Cousins, and that didn't happen. You wouldn't have known who the highly paid quarterback was in that matchup. Yeah, we can get to it later, but they had 3 turnovers while driving that just ended up costing them the game. Um, but I'm not going to overreact one way or another. It's week one.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have the Jets Bills under 46.5. So that is pending. That game is going on
Tonight.
as we're recording. Yeah, but you guys, this will already have passed by the time you listen to this. So hopefully we hit that under 46.5. And then next up, I had the Falcons -3.5 against the Panthers. They kind of cruised to that victory. Desmond Ridder really did not look very impressive.
No, I watched
Um,
the whole game. He did not look good.
what was his average depth of target? 3 yards?
Yeah, it was something crazy. All of his passing yards basically came from screens to Bijan.
Yeah, and Bijan's touchdown was amazing. Definitely NFL caliber player. He's a human highlight reel. But were you a little, as a fantasy owner, were you a little concerned with Tyler Algier, kind of taking the majority of the touches and snaps there? And he scored twice, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, no, not really, because there was a couple times where I felt like they put Bijan in around the goal line. Algier is good. I don't. That's why I never understood the draft pick of Bijan in the first place. But as a fantasy owner and a half PPR league, he's going to get most of the catches. I don't think Algier is really a receiving back at all. I was more worried about having Drake London on my team and him having 2 targets, and he dropped it. So
Yeah.
he was in my lineup because Jerry Judy's out, so it's not a long term thing. getting 0 points from your starting flex is a little brutal.
The Falcons' offense, just in general, Arthur Smith, just plays so slow. They just do not get a lot of snaps. They just like want to run, 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 go down the field, eat up a bunch of clock. So for fantasy purposes, yeah, it's not great. But as long as they split out Bijan in the slot, then they should be okay in terms of getting him some high volume games. I also had the Titans Saints over 41.5. That was a complete disaster. I think it was 16-15. Ryan Tannehill, I think he's washed. I don't think the Titans have any offensive weapons that have any juice. Hopkins did not do much. Derrick Henry, I mean, he got out snapped. Do you think that they're slowly going away from him, or they saved him for the playoffs? What's the deal there?
I mean, he's 29, 30. Can't say it's impossible. I don't know. He led the league in attempts last year. He's led the league in attempts 3 of the last 4 years, actually. So I wouldn't say they're phasing him out. I think it's more just they're probably trying to keep him a little fresh. It seemed like he had more receiving yards than he normally has, or was that just me? I mean, he had a 46-yard catch.
Yeah, I think the back half of last year he really started getting involved in the passing game more. They did pick Tajay Spears out of the third round, 81st pick. So they obviously want to get him the ball, get him in the offense. He's like the exact opposite of Derrick Henry. He's only 195 pounds and is a quicker guy. But Mike Vrabel did end up saying last night that he thinks is maybe more of an outlier, but I don't know if that's smokescreen or kind of what that is. If I'm a Derrick Henry fantasy owner, I'm a little bit concerned, but it's still a little early in the season to kind of worry about that.
Yeah, I love Derrick Henry. I've always been a Derrick Henry guy going back to Bama. I think he's maybe one of the quietest superstars in the NFL. I don't know if it's because he plays in Tennessee and they haven't really had a ton of success as like a team, but his stats are just insane. He's the definition of a workhorse. I mean, leading the league in attempts 3 of the last 4 years. I, I
Yeah,
think he's going to be like an inner circle Hall of Famer when it's all said and done as a running back. 17 touchdowns, 16 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns. He's had 5 straight double-digit touchdown seasons. He has a 2,000-yard season. He's honestly just been a machine and reliable for 7 years, 8 years now.
that's interesting. I've never thought of him as a Hall of Famer. Sports Illustrated had an article that came out in April of 2023 with a Hall of Fame debate here, and a lot of people are arguing yes, just because, like you said, he's been so good for so long. And if you remember their playoff teams from a couple of years ago, they only got in because of him. He,
Yeah.
yeah, and like those games, like the Titans always play the Chiefs well for some reason. It's because he just runs and can totally get through their D line and linebackers. So
He plays against a stacked box every single game, and he still averages over 100 yards per game.
yeah,
Like, it's insane. He averaged 126 yards per game 1 year.
yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, great player. Alabama running backs. You saw Jahmyr Gibbs. He looked like he had some juice Thursday night. There's something in the water down there in Bama in the running back room.
A bunch of transfers. He's a
That's
Georgia Tech guy.
that's true.
Kamara is a Tennessee guy.
Josh Jacobs, though,
That's a good point.
through and through. Yeah. All right. So then, what? Any thoughts on the Saints? I thought they looked okay. I think that Chris Olave looked good. That wasn't really a surprise.
No, honestly, they did what we expected them to do: win and win ugly.
Yeah. That's kind of the Derek Carr that we know. He's not
Yeah,
going to do a whole lot. He'll make a couple plays. His deep ball at the end to kind of ice the game. I thought that was a really nice throw. Um, but
yeah.
yeah, it's a tough look for Austin Ash, our guest from a few episodes ago. He took the Titans to win the division, so not off to a great start, but it's still early. Um, Speaking of not off to a great start, I took the Seahawks -4.5, and they got absolutely destroyed by the Rams. I did not see this coming at all. The Rams are missing Cooper Kupp, but then they just had a rookie come out of nowhere and catch a bunch of passes for them. So I don't know about you, but have you heard about? I don't even have his name pulled up here. Tutu
So
Atwell was their leader, but then their next guy was Puka Nakua, who had 10 receptions for 119 yards.
yeah, I never heard of him until yesterday.
Yeah.
How does this impact your feeling about Seattle? Like, are they? I know we talked about doing like a power ranking. I just didn't know. Does this change your mind at all, or are you just like it's week one?
I just don't really like Geno Smith in general. I mean, I just feel like there's limitations on him. He'll never like win you a playoff game, so it's hard for me to take the Seahawks seriously. They arguably have like one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL with Lockett and DK and now JSN, but I don't know. I don't really believe in the Seahawks.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker,
Yeah, him and
the
Charbonnet.
running
That's
back.
also they could have one of the best running back rooms as well. So their offense is loaded. They're just kind of missing that quarterback, in my opinion. So yeah, that was the 6 pack. We're 2-3 right now. We have the Jets Bills under pending, so hopefully we can get up to 500. We'll just call this week a wash, so that will be good. Any other thoughts on the 6 pack before we hop into the NFL?
No, I was to say Gunnar Henderson's basically wrapped up Rookie of the Year. So whenever that hits, like I think we'll be officially in the green.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, going into this past week, we were down 0.7 units, but there's a couple futures that have just like super good odds, so we'll be good there. Okay, so going into the NFL, let's just break down each game one by one, and we'll kind of just see how this goes. So, first up on Thursday night, we have Lions Chiefs. Your Chiefs lost by one. Kadarius Toney had the worst graded PFF game of all time. Do you think that this is just a fluke,
I'm not
or
I'm not worried.
okay?
I'm not worried because that will never, like you said, that's the worst wide receiver game we've ever seen. I'm not worried about that being a thing. They trusted him in the Super Bowl. I don't think he's good. I'm worried about the wide receivers a little bit in general. I'm just confident somehow, some way they'll figure it out. I don't know if they'll make another trade or how it'll work. I'm a little worried about the defense, but they actually played better than I thought. That was like the one thing I was a little surprised by is I thought that the Lions were gonna like run it up on that defense without Chris Jones, but they held it together. So no Kelsey definitely hurts. Felt like there was a few moments in the game where you knew uh, they needed Kelsey in that spot. Mahomes looked good, so he was running around. So I don't know. They have Mahomes, they'll be fine.
It's pretty incredible that their leading pass rusher or pass receivers, MVS 48 yards, Justin Watson 45, Pacheco 31, no Gray 31, all that, and they only lost by one. They literally they were a Kadarius Toney drop away at the end of the game from just kicking a field goal and winning, and they didn't even
Yeah, I
play
was gonna
well.
say the whole they were up 7 with the ball, about to just ice the game, and it was like a third down in a spot that you'd typically just go to Kelsey. We've seen for years, and they throw it. It goes through Tony's hand, interception, pick six. It just felt like that was the kind of the moment in the game, or were they up 6 at that point? Either way, that just felt like that was the game right there.
Yeah, and the Lions, I thought they played okay. I think they just played a solid game.
Their
Nothing.
defensive line is legit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I just think they still have limitations with Jared Goff. I thought David Montgomery looked pretty good. So I'm glad.
Gibbs looked good.
Yeah, Gibbs looked good.
St. Brown looked good.
Yeah, so they definitely have the weapons. I just, I don't know. My power rankings will indicate that a little later when we touch on that after this, but I'm still not super high on the Lions. I just think they're a middling team for right now until they prove me differently.
I'm a little more bullish on the Lions, I think, than you. I said last week, I said I gave the Bears as like my division odds or whatever, but that was because it was 5 times more profit. I think, and I said the Lions. If odds weren't a factor and you're not gambling, I think the Lions are the most talented team. I still feel that way after week one. And if you were looking at their schedule coming in, you had that chalked up as an L, and now it's a W. So they're already a full game ahead of pace as to what 99% of America thought they were going to be at right now. So
Yeah. Okay. Next up, Browns, Bengals. Browns won 24-3. Weather definitely played a factor. Joe Burrow couldn't really grip the ball. He was 14-31 for 82 yards. But, I mean, Deshaun Watson was playing under the same conditions. He was 16-29 for 154 and a touchdown. I watched this whole game. I personally thought the Browns' defense was the best unit on the field. Their defensive line specifically wasn't even close. They just dominated. Burrow didn't have any time. They didn't, let Jamar Chase and T. Higgins run wild because there was just so much pressure. T. Higgins, I don't even think he had a catch. And Jamar Chase was 5 for 39. So he'll take that all day. Are you worried about the Bengals? Do you think this is a sign of things to come, or do you think it's more of just Joe Burrow is a little rusty and needs to get healthy?
well, I'm riding with the Ravens this year in the division, so that was a welcoming sight. I do think the factors you said about the weather, and I know some people say he's not 100%. That's fine. Um, I just don't think I haven't been as high on the Bengals all year. I still think they're probably a back end of the wild card team because I think, as we said last week, like they'll look like absolute crap. Some weeks they'll look like crap against. They kind of play to the level of their competition. They'll probably have a week here soon where they beat somebody and look really, really good, and everyone's like, "Oh, are they back?" This is just what they do.
Yeah, yeah. I would generally agree. I want to go back to your Ravens point. Let's skip ahead to that game. So the Ravens beat the Texans. Wasn't particularly close. Let me see the score here. It
Yes,
was 25-9. So CJ
I
Stroud.
watched it. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So I assume CJ Stroud couldn't. I mean, he had 242 yards, but I mean, their offense is pretty. Uh,
I felt like the Ravens kind of screwed around a lot of that game. I mean, Lamar didn't look good. Lamar had 0 touchdowns. I think he had a fumble. I think he had an interception. He had 6 fantasy points, put it that way. They fumbled the snap. They gave the ball to the Texans in good field position multiple times. I mean, they probably played like as bad as they could and still won by 2 scores. So I'm not worried about the Ravens. I think they'll clean it up. Overall, though, yeah, the Texans are going to be bad.
so I'm going to disagree with you. I am worried about the Ravens in the sense of them having a good year. They lost J.K. Dobbins for the year,
Yeah, I
and
hate that.
more importantly, they lost Marcus Williams, one of their top defensive backs. He played his first 5 years
Yeah.
for the Saints, if you remember him. I think he's the guy who got beat by Stephon Diggs in that
I I
miracle
said
game.
part of the reason I was back on them was the running back room finally being healthy. It feels like there are like 3 backs are always rotating, being injured, and JK lasted like 3 quarters.
Yeah.
So that definitely puts a damper on things. But I guess I didn't see anything from the Bengals to really scare me, and neither from the Steelers. If we want to go there, I thought the 49ers were maybe the big winner of the weekend. I know a lot of people, including me, kind of had them on upset alert, and they put that game away like in the first quarter. It was a complete domination. Brock Purdy looked good. Got to give him his credit. He definitely outplayed Kenny Pickett. Steelers still can't run the ball. Najee Harris is. I feel bad for him. I don't think it's totally his fault, but I would not want to be a fantasy owner of Najee Harris.
Now, him and Jalen Warren are just going to have the same stat lines every single week for the whole year. So,
And didn't Deontay Johnson get hurt, or was it just like he left for a little bit, and came back? I didn't see what happened.
yeah, he got hurt. He hurt his hamstring. I'm not sure how serious it is right now, but yeah. Going back to the 49ers, though, Brock Purdy, 19-29, 2 touchdowns, 109 quarterback rating. He's the first QB in NFL history to guide his team to win each of his first 6 career starts while also throwing 2+ touchdowns in each of those starts. So I know that Shanahan's a great coach, but honestly, I'm starting to buy into Purdy. I don't think that this is just um, I think this is legit. I don't think this is just a one-off thing. I mean, the Steelers' defense is nothing to sneeze at. Um, TJ Watt had 3 sacks quietly, so he's looking to win Defensive Player of the Year or be in the running again. But I think Purdy's legit. I think they can actually make a run in the NFC. Yeah,
Well, I had them going to the Super Bowl, and I wasn't even that high on Purdy. So seeing him play that well, um, you'll see. I'm very high on them in my power rankings.
good deal. Okay. Next up, we have Buccaneers, Vikings. I guess we touched on that. But real quick, Justin Jefferson dominated as per usual. He had 9 catches for 150 yards. Jordan Addison had a nice touchdown for them on a deep ball. But Kirk Cousins is going to Kirk Cousins. He's going to have his turnovers.
Wasn't even prime time, man. If that was a night game, I wouldn't have taken him.
Baker Mayfield just basically didn't shoot himself in the foot, which allowed them to win. He kind of just stayed in his lane.
Yeah, he actually played decent.
Yeah, so that's good. He was 21 to 34 for 173 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, he's still got Mike Evans. He's still got Godwin. That Godwin catch to kind of seal the game was pretty incredible. Um, they, you know, they're only 2 years removed from their Super Bowl, or 3 years removed for their Super Bowl. They still have a lot of those good defensive players on the team. So especially,
It seemed like
go ahead.
it seemed like through week one, the Vikings were kind of giving back some of that luck they had last year. It's kind of balancing out a little bit. 3 turnovers while driving. And as you said about Jefferson, he had 9 catches, but I think only 2 of them were in the second half. Kirk just didn't go to him the whole second half.
Yeah,
So uh, that was just vintage. That's the Kirk Cousins that makes him get shit on so much, deservedly. And yeah, Vikings fans, I think, are just in like perpetual hell.
their next game is already this Thursday night. It's Vikings at Eagles. The
So they're
Vikings,
0-2.
yeah, yeah, the Eagles are laying 7 there. Would you lay that 7, or are you more of just wanting to put that into a teaser leg and get that down to 1?
Yeah, maybe you buy a point there. I don't know. I think the Eagles didn't look great last week, but I think in a way that's good for a team like them to kind of get over like a Super Bowl hangover type thing. You don't want to come out week one and look amazing. You kind of want to have some things to work on, but still get the win. And I think they did that. I don't think they're probably satisfied with their offensive performance. So I think they'll probably have a little extra motivation. The Vikings defense, I was not impressed.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just think that they won 14 games last year. I think they're an 8 or 9 win team. I think they do that again, and it'll be
Is that game in Philly?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take the 7.
Okay, taking the 7. Yeah, so that's Thursday night. Yeah, I probably won't be playing anything there. Maybe I'll just throw a Justin Jefferson anytime touchdown just to have fun while I watch it.
Kirk on prime time in Philly. That place is going to be insane.
I think they played week 2 last year. Same 2 teams, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe that was, let's see here. Maybe it was week 1, but no, it was Monday, September 19th last year. Eagles won 24-7, just absolutely destroyed them. It's probably going to be more of the same. So let's skip ahead to the Eagles now. Eagles Patriots. Did you catch any of that game?
Bits and pieces. I saw the Darius Slay pick 6. I thought Mac Jones, from what I saw, actually looked better.
Yeah.
I think the Patriots offense actually looked competent. The Patriots defense held them in check. I think, yeah, they lost, but I think if you're a Patriots fan, you're not feeling super shitty this morning. You're like, okay,
No,
we're probably going to win some games.
I'm pretty optimistic on the Patriots after watching that. I've never seen the Eagles have so many 3-and-out drives. I think they had like 3 or 4 in a row at one point. Mac Jones, he did not play well at the end of the game, but he was 35 of 54. I'm not sure their ideal game plan is 54 pass attempts for Mac Jones, but 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, which was a pick 6. I mean, they basically spotted the Eagles 16 points in the first quarter because of the pick 6, and then Ezekiel Elliott fumbled, gave them short field, so they went down, and Devontae Smith scored. So just to fight back into that game, I mean, you look at the 16-0 deficit for the Patriots. They fought back, and then you look at the Giants on Sunday Night Football last night. They got down 16-0 early, and just completely mailed it in, and then they lost 4
I
minutes.
didn't even watch. I left the house for like 30 minutes and I came back and the game was like three touchdowns. And I'm getting texts in a group chat from a friend of mine that's a Giants fan. Like, this is going worse than I could have ever imagined. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not watching this.
Yeah. I can't imagine that the Giants are going to be that bad this year, but I do not
No.
think they're a playoff team. They play the Cardinals next week, but in the following weeks they have the Niners on the road. They play the Seahawks at home. They play at Miami, and then there's one more hard game, I believe. Then at the Bills. So you better win next week, otherwise you're starting 0-6 essentially.
Yeah. I think that game was more about the Cowboys than the Giants for me. I think the Cowboys are legit. I had them in my top four coming into the season and kind of validated that a little bit through 1 week. I just, like I said in our preview pod, I think that their top end talent is, the top couple teams in the whole league. We'll see what the depth and everything looks like, and I think Dak is what he is at this point too. But I just think the top end talent, they have more of like those top 20, 30 players in the whole league than most teams do.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Okay. Falcons Panthers, we touched on that. Next game up, Commanders beat the Cardinals 20-16. That was a pretty sloppy game. I caught some bits and pieces of that and kind of just read the review of the game. But essentially, the Commanders just basically were trying to give it away to the Cardinals, and the
Hmm.
Cardinals didn't take it. It was Josh Dobbs' first game. He's been with the team for like 10 days, so I'm not going to put.
Yeah, he said he didn't know some of his teammates' last names. He said if it weren't for the jerseys or the names on the back of the jersey, he wouldn't know who some of his wide receivers are.
Yeah. So their coach Jonathan Gannon did announce this morning that Dobbs is going to start again next week against the Giants. So I'm sure he'll put together a little bit better of a game. The one takeaway I had from this was um, I do not think the Commanders are going to be great. Sam Howell, if you can't, play well against the Arizona D, I'm not really sure how you're going to do that against the Eagles or the Cowboys in 4 games.
Yep.
So
This isn't going to be the first time I say it on this podcast, but this is I'm putting Ron Rivera on hot seat watch. I think I think he's got to be the leader in the clubhouse to get fired mid-season right now. So that was my takeaway from the game. I know they won, but I mean that Cardinals team, talent wise, oh my god, they are bad.
Speaking of first coach to get fired, are you sure it's not Matt Eberflus? Because the
Oh yeah,
Packers
that was
destroyed
I
him.
said I said it's not gonna be the first time I say it, and that's what I was alluding to.
So
Are
yeah,
we gonna get into that now? Do we have an hour of spare time for me to go through this?
no, we have 2 minutes. So go.
Okay. Um, I want to first congratulate the Packers, all of our fans, Brady Ellingson, Tyler Ellingson, Brett Gatos. I feel like Austin Ash, all the Packers fans. Half my family tree. I've heard it from everybody. I'm still here. I'm still smiling. If you've got the YouTube video going, it doesn't hurt. I'll say this: it doesn't hurt as bad getting your ass beat. In the past, I've always viewed losing to the Packers as like a barometer for like success, and now it's just kind of like feels like it's kind of like a mid team beating up on a shit team, and I don't know. I could probably do a whole podcast on the game. What I do for my NFL and college teams, like during games, during halftime, I like rewind the TiVo or the YouTube TV. I go back and I like watch certain plays because it lets you do that. And I try to get like a feel for the next half. And it was pretty clear to me at halftime. I didn't know why they went away from Aaron Jones in the second quarter. I felt like that was the only reason the Bears were still in the game. He was getting like 8 yard chunks. Um, this is going to amaze you, but Justin Fields had a higher PFF rating than Jordan Love. Um, the Bears' defensive line was 32nd last year in every statistical category. They had 7 sacks as a defensive line. They signed a couple guys and they were upgrades. One of those guys had a sack, but that doesn't just. I mean, they went from like 32nd to like 31st, maybe. So just Jordan Love had all day in the pocket. I don't think our secondary's that big of an issue. I think our linebackers are good. So give Jordan Love his credit. I know can't really say anything because he didn't play bad, but he didn't have to do anything. I don't think he got hit more than once. I think they said the Bears blitzed twice the whole game, and the guy who blitzed got hurt. And last year, their secondary had more sacks than their starting defensive line, and then they didn't blitz. So basically, it was like there was no chance of them ever getting pressure on a guy in his first career start.
Where are the Bears going to win games? Like they play the Bucks next week. If you don't win that game, I mean your season's over.
I mean, they play the NFC South. So yeah, I'm gonna give them a few more weeks. I think I'm most disappointed in the coaching. But that game they're the offensively, all they wanted to do was throw screens. It felt very similar to what we'll get into with Iowa State. They knew that their offensive line had a mismatch, so everything was like this little sideline pass or to the running back. They couldn't even block the screens. Like they were tipping passes on screens. We were throwing it to the running back for -7. It was a complete bloodbath. I think I said that 1.5 starters were hurt, and because one of them didn't practice. They didn't play in the preseason. I don't know what Matt Eberflus was thinking, but he wasn't practicing. He's in such bad football shape. He left in the second quarter with like being tired. He was like asking out of the game, and then Tevin Jenkins didn't play. Um, if you watch, I listened to the radio today, and they were watching like the all 22, and they said like every single play there was a breakdown basically from somebody on the offensive line. It kind of rotated. I think Braxton Jones had 4 holding calls. I knew I was in for a long day on the very first play of the game. The Bears started from their own 11-yard line because the very first play of the season was a flag.
Yeah.
And then you have 3rd and 1 with a foot to go, and your offensive line can't get a push. And then you have 4th and 1 from a foot to go, and your offensive line can't get a push. So from that point forward, it's like we're not going to be able to run the ball. Justin ran for his life. I mean, he wasn't great, but I don't think Chase Claypool is. Do you want to talk about that trade? Because I know it sucks.
Yeah, I mean the Bears just traded the 32nd pick for Chase Claypool, and he is definitely not worth it. He hasn't
He's not
contributed
even going to dress anymore.
anything.
I don't even think he's going to play. They're talking about benching him, like literally not even dressing him.
Oh, they
He was
should.
that
They
bad.
need to make an example out of him because some of his effort. If you just search his name on Twitter, you'll see some of his highlights or lowlights, if you will. It's pretty sad. So, um,
Yeah, I think Ryan Poles is doing a good job. I
is
think
he?
he whiffed on
Is
that.
he? Because he traded the number
Yes,
one pick and he got DJ Moore, and they threw it to him twice.
DJ Moore's here for 2 more years. I don't. Who cares? Like you said, this season's done. If Justin's not the guy, look. Put it this way. I like the last 2 draft classes. They're going to have 2 top 5, 6 picks. They have the draft capital. Um, the Chase Claypool trade, at the time he made that trade, the Bears were like 3-5. I don't think he thought that was going to be pick 32 at the time he made it.
It doesn't even matter if it
So
was
I'm
pick
sure. No,
64. That's horrible.
yeah, no one knew Chase Claypool was this fucking trash at the time. It
Dude,
was him or Michael Pittman, and no one was like Chase Claypool was this bad.
oh man, I wish you weren't a Bears fan and you could look at this from like 1,000 feet in the air because you would see how bad it is. But I appreciate your fandom, and we're looking forward to hearing how you can positively spin these games every single week.
I don't really care. Look at I'm not out on Justin Fields as a player. I think he's going to go somewhere else and he's going to be just fine. But the contract situation and just like the fatigue of dealing with all this, he's going to be gone after this year. Um, they'll bring in some rookie with one of their top picks, whether it's their pick or Carolina's pick. Either way, we're going to have a new quarterback in Chicago next year. Um, and, and and like I said, I don't think the NFC North is really going to be strong over the next 3 to 5 years. So
Okay. Well, I
We'll
thought
see.
I thought the Packers looked great. I thought Jordan Love played well. They didn't
You
ask for
can't beat a sorry ass team and
they.
say that they're great.
I don't think he did anything exceptional, but he definitely didn't make any mistakes. That touchdown to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones did all the work, but it was still a nice throw. So I don't know. I'm high on the Packers. I think the Packers can make a run in the NFC. So
I think they can compete for the division. I just don't think anybody from that division. I don't think it matters. I think DJ Moore is going to get the ball more. I'm glad he'll be here for 2 more years.
I mean, if he
They
gets it,
just they literally don't have enough time to even let him run deep, so it doesn't matter. Like I feel the only thing they can do is throw a screen or a slant to get him the ball.
yeah, that's
Until Tevin Jenkins is back and until Ryan Davis is actually practicing and able to stay in a full game, the offensive line is going to still be the worst in the NFL. There's really no hope until that gets figured out. So we're just going to have to suck it up, look like shit for the next few weeks, and then hopefully look like a competent football team. Um, Definitely looked like they quit in the second half. I mean, they were giving up punt returns for 50 yards. They were giving up slants to running backs for 70 yards.
yeah,
The offensive game plan, I just think they got out coached too. But Matt Eberflus is like a Dale Swaim, if you know who that is. He was always here to be a just kind of hold the fort down for a couple of years, be a transition coach.
sure. Yeah, you guys can get Harbaugh in next year, and then actually start trying to win.
Yep.
All right. Are you done with the Bears? I'm sick of hearing about that team
Um, like I said, I'm still optimistic on the future of the team. It reminds me of the 2022 Cubs a little bit. Um,
because
the goal was to be
they're
competitive.
both teams playing in the city of Chicago. Is that why?
No, because both teams came in being the goal was to be competitive, not necessarily be a playoff team. And pretty quickly we realized that they weren't. But you could still see in the background that they're building.
How many games do you think the Bears win this year? I think they're going to win four.
I tweeted my thoughts after the game. I think they're going to win 5.
Okay. Okay, 4 or 5
It's an
games.
improvement.
Yeah.
It's an improvement with more resources.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll check back in with them next week. They have the Bucks next week. I
Bucks.
think the Bears are. I think they're underdogs, aren't they?
Yeah, dude, Ryan Davis couldn't even make it through a quarter and a half at Soldier. How's he going to do it in Tampa?
Yeah, it's going to be hot down there. Got a
Uh,
week to get those electrolytes in. Um,
oh my god.
all right. Next up, Raiders Broncos. Jimmy G. All he does is win. 17-16. Raiders
I
win.
wish I would have started Jacoby Myers
Yeah, nine
fantasy.
nine catches for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is pretty funny because he started his career with the most receiving yards in NFL history without a touchdown, and now he's just ringing them up. He did get hurt. He has a concussion, unfortunately, so hopefully he's good to go
Mm.
for next week. For all you Texas football fans out there, Broncos wide receiver Lil Jordan Humphrey scored, so that was always good to see. He's one of my favorite players from a few years ago. Kind of just a back and forth game. It was a 1 possession game through and through. I know Will Lutz missed a 50+ yard field goal. I don't know what Sean Payton's affinity is with him. They traded the Saints to get Will Lutz in the building. I don't think he's that good. And his effort yesterday showed. And then basically Jimmy G threw the game when he touchdown with 6:34 left, and they held on from there. So until you mentioned at the top of the show, Jerry Judy's out. I think until they get him back, I wouldn't expect their offense to do too much. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny. Like this game, I just don't think it has any real implications on the playoffs. It maybe just eliminated the Broncos from the playoffs.
Yeah, I didn't watch a single snap of this game.
Yeah.
Um, it was one of those. I just don't. I told you guys last. I don't want to watch it. I won't watch it. If the Broncos are playing, I'm not watching.
Okay. Tell us how you really feel.
I don't care. I don't care. They just suck to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they were the freaking any other franchise, if they were the Commanders with that same roster, they would not be on TV as much.
Yeah. Uh, Here's a game that I watched a little bit of: Jaguars Colts. Jags ended up winning by 10. So they covered the 4.5, which it was close at the end because The Colts had a couple chances. I think it was like second and third and fourth and goal. They had to bring Gardner Minshew in because Anthony Richardson got beat up a little bit, which is just a bruise, so it's no biggie. But yeah, the Jags stopped him there and ended up just kneeing the clock out. Did you catch any of this game? Were you as impressed with Anthony Richardson as I was? Because I thought he looked really
Yeah,
good.
I watched a lot of that one during the noon slate. I thought Anthony Richardson looked pretty good. Yeah, he got hurt at the end, but Trevor looked good. I think the Jags. It was a closer game than the score indicated, but I think Trevor looked pretty good.
Yeah, and then they got the Chiefs next week. Uh,
The Colts or the
the
Jags?
Jags. Which looking ahead, I know we don't want to
Hmm.
get too much into the plays, but the Chiefs are only 3-point favorites at the Jags. They're at minus 172 money line. There is no world where I think Mahomes starts 0-2.
What is the total for that? Like 65?
51.5. Is that an overplay for you?
It might be because both of those offenses. I think the Jags defense might be a little suspect, and I think that the Chiefs defense is a little suspect.
Did you see
And you
that
have two quarterbacks.
they got Chris Jones under 1 year deal as of like
Oh,
3 p.m. Pacific time today?
oh no, I did not see that. That's good. That helps.
Yeah. Um,
I feel a little better.
Still though, I mean, he hasn't practiced or played, so it could take him a couple weeks to get into it. But yeah, that definitely helps, especially for the outlook on their season. Okay, a couple more games. Dolphins Chargers. This is probably the best game of the weekend. Um, Dolphins ended up winning 36-34. Chargers got the ball back with about a minute and change left. They could not drive down the field. Herbert got sacked a couple times. Tua threw for 466 yards. Tyreek Hill in his 2,000-yard campaign. He had 215 yards and 2 touchdowns, over 11 receptions. So pretty impressive. We did touch on him. We liked his over yards on our NFL preview. So he's off to a good start there. I know I picked the Chargers to win the Super Bowl. It's very frustrating. I just feel like as a defensive coach, Brandon Staley is like not doing anything to help his defense. I can't remember the last time their defense played well. So
Yeah, I've been on the Dolphins bandwagon all off season. That was my AFC East pick. It's always just been about Tua's health. I've been defending Tua to you and to my friends for feels like years now, but he's the real deal. Um, that game was probably the most fun of the weekend. I only caught parts of it is at the same time as the Bears game, but yeah, it went back and forth. It seemed like Tua outplayed what's his Herbert. I'll say that. But I don't know. I think like some people have like their NBA pass team they like to watch. I think the Dolphins might be the NFL version of that because I think they're just gonna put up a ton of points every week.
yeah, they got this Sunday night Dolphins Patriots. So I'm looking forward to that one for sure. Okay, that was the whole NFL slate. We can just touch on a couple big college football games. Um, let's start with Iowa State. The Hawks got the dub. I'm wearing my Hawkeye gear. Um, it wasn't pretty necessarily. Cade did enough to get the job done. The defense scored some points, which always helps them win. So, are you feeling good? Do you feel better than you did last week, or about the same? Where you at?
I feel more optimistic about the offense than I did a week ago. I actually think Brian Ferentz called a pretty good game. Um, if you go back and you watch the tape, I think you're going to see that Cade might have been holding the offense back, which is crazy to say. I still like Cade. I still believe in Cade. They had 3 deep balls. One he overthrew, one he underthrew, and one that should have been pass interference. But they were open. That's a good defense you're facing. Like they schemed them perfectly. They set them up perfectly. He missed on all 3. The only ones he seemed like he was accurate with were the throws to the tight ends. Luke Lachey and Eric All seem like they're going to be another elite duo at wide receiver or tight end, very similar to like the Fant and Hawkinson teams. Um, so I'm optimistic there. Jazz Patterson at running back. He looks like a running back one. But I think the storyline of that game was the line play. The Iowa offensive line only allowed Cade to get hit twice. I think I would have never dreamed that coming in. That's not a bad defensive line. I think Iowa State's going to finish as a top 10 defense in the country this year, playing
Wow.
in the Big 12. Um, they were in the top 5 last year, so I don't think that's crazy to say. Um, the running game still struggled for most of the game, but when they needed that 3rd and 2 or that 4th and 1, it just seemed like they were able to get it. Jazz would break through for those big gains. So they had like timely running plays, and then they protected Cade in the pass. They performed better on the line this week than they did versus Utah State, which is kind of interesting. Overall, though, the biggest mismatch in the game was Iowa's defensive line on their offensive line. They couldn't run the football. They had a similar game plan, kind of to like what the Bears had, where like they knew they couldn't block, so everything was a quick pass. And like they have a young quarterback, so it was like screen to the wide receiver, run. Like everything was just like out of his hand in 2 seconds. I think I only had 1 sack, while being the most dominant position group on the field. The gap sound, everything was great. The only thing I'll say is I think there's still you can just tell that the linebacker play is not what we're used to the last couple of years. So I would say I'm like a tick down on the defense versus the last couple of years, but slightly more optimistic on the offense I was a week ago, which is a few steps ahead of last year.
Isn't Jay Higgins a linebacker?
He's good.
People are
I
acting
think
like
Nick
he's
Jackson,
like the next coming of God based off like Twitter. So I don't know how you could be down on the linebacker group.
they're acting like he's God or they think his dad's funny. I think those are different things.
Okay.
Nick
Yeah.
Jackson looked like you could tell he's still new. They used to ask Jack Campbell to play a lot in coverage, and that's part of the reason he was so good. Is he's 6'5", he could run with wide receivers. Nick Jackson can't do that. Like 99% of linebackers. So I think he'll get better, but I just think we're gonna have to go back to like being a top 10 defense and being ecstatic about that rather than being the number 1 or number 2 defense
Yeah.
in the country. So
Okay. Well, it was enough to get the job done. They have Western Michigan next week. We'll cover that. Thursday, we'll do like a 5 or 6 minute preview there. I do want,
bloodbath.
yeah, bloodbath. Hopefully, because for Brian Fearon's sake, he needs some points. Otherwise, he's
Yeah,
not
they're
going to make
racking
it
up the
25.
points.
Yeah. Um, let's stay in the Big Ten West. Wisconsin played at Washington State as favorites and got beat.
Yeah, I know I took Wisconsin to cover, but in hindsight, it felt like kind of an obvious in your face answer. They lost to them last year. Iowa and Wisconsin defensively have struggles with offenses that spread you out. Like, who's been the kryptonite for Iowa in the Big Ten who's not even that great? It's Purdue. So Washington State spreading Wisconsin out and having success, putting up 31 points, really wasn't super surprising to me. Um, I think it's kind of why Iowa used to struggle with Iowa State back in the day before the Matt Campbell era. Iowa matches up better with Matt Campbell than they did with like those old offenses, the Gene Chiswicks and the Dan McCartneys, because when those teams spread you out and you play the way Iowa and Iowa State, or the way that Iowa and Wisconsin play defensively, those underneath routes and things are a lot easier. Um, it just a few more holes show up in your zone. But I guess I was more just disappointed in the Wisconsin offense. But ultimately, the Big Ten West looks terrible. So as an Iowa fan, it's like, yeah, we can go get spanked by Penn State, who might be the best team in the Big Ten and might go to the playoff. But the rest of the games on the schedule are winnable.
So one of our loyal listeners, Brett Gatos, tweeted into the show Saturday night. He said that he still thinks Wisconsin wins the Big Ten West. He thinks they even beat Ohio State and they beat Iowa head to head, and it's Michigan, Wisconsin, and Indy. Are you still sticking with Iowa, Ohio State, or has your thoughts shifted at all?
I mean, yeah, I'm still riding. I would say this: if I were going to make a switch to my Ohio State over Iowa pick, it would be Penn State over Iowa. I think Penn State has impressed me a lot.
No love for
Um,
Michigan. Unreal.
Michigan's looked better than Ohio State. I'll admit that. I would say Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. I just think Ohio State has the highest ceiling. It's just will they get there? Um, they started really slow last week, then poured it on a little bit. Their offense just hasn't totally clicked. Um, but no, Wisconsin is not going 11-1. Is that what he's saying?
It looks like it, yeah.
No, it's not happening.
Okay.
I don't know if that's even a bold take.
All right. Time will tell. Time will tell. Okay. Some other notable games. Colorado. They had another win. They took care of business against Nebraska. Feel really bad for Jeff Sims. He's probably the world's best athlete. That's a horrible quarterback. He can't throw. I don't know how he's going to play in the Big Ten this year. Then you look on the other side. Shadir Sanders went 31 to 42. He had another, almost 400-yard game, couple touchdowns. I don't know. Colorado, are they legit? Because they're acting
um,
like it.
yeah, I mean, I want to say that the score of that game is a little misleading. It was a lot closer than I think you would think if you just saw the box score. It seemed like Nebraska was outplaying them for the first 20, 30 minutes.
I
And
think
then
it was
right
only
before
it was
half,
only 13-0 at half. I think.
yeah, Colorado turned it on in the last few minutes before halftime. But Nebraska's defense initially looked like they were going to put on a clinic, and then the switch flipped. Um, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they might end up being one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Um, TCU, I don't know what they did last week. Look, I think we can obviously say they're a lot better than their preseason projections. They're going to be a bowl team, I think. Um, I haven't looked at their schedule super close, but I know that there's 7 teams in the Pac-12 that are pretty good.
So their FanDuel, they have like tabs on their website for like featured games, national champion, Heisman. They also have a Colorado tab that's been newly added.
Oh God.
Colorado's over under has now moved to 6.5, and it's juiced minus 162 to the over. You guys remember they opened 3.5. They have their upcoming game this Saturday. They play Colorado State. They're 22.5 point favorites, so they should roll there. But 2 weeks from now, on September 22nd, they play at Colorado. Do you want to guess what the line is on that game?
I'm looking at a different schedule.
Really?
I see them playing at Oregon on September 23rd. Or am I looking at the wrong
Sorry,
thing?
is that not what I said? I meant at Oregon. Who did I say?
Oh, okay. You said at Colorado.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
Colorado at Oregon. Excuse me.
Oregon looked vulnerable. They almost lost to Texas Tech, and they somehow came back and covered. I think we gave that pick out last pod, so I'm glad that ended up hitting, but it was not easy. I think Oregon will beat them. I think Oregon's home field advantage will be huge. I think they may have a stretch where they start looking kind of rough because they're going to go at Oregon, USC at home. I think USC is better, and then they wait. They have 2 games, and then it's UCLA and Oregon State back to back. So 4 of their next 6 games are against top 20 ranked teams.
Yeah.
After Colorado State, that is. So sorry, 4 of the next 7.
Yeah. I think we'll know more about Colorado and that Oregon USC back-to-back stretch. If they just get smashed one of those games, then they're probably not as good as we think they are. I don't think they're the 18th ranked team in the country. I think they're more of like in that 30 to 40 range, but props to Dion for getting the hype up on them.
Yeah, they play 7 ranked teams the rest of the way, 7 of their next 10.
It's tough.
So it's going to be tough.
Okay. Yeah, then I guess the last game I want to talk about here, unless you have any others. Well, real quick, Miami beat Texas A&M by 15. Texas A&M, people thought they were going to be better this year. It looks like it's more of the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that reminds me of some things. One, Jimbo hot seat. Jimbo's on a warm seat. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's always that chance that maybe Miami's actually good. I don't know. We'll see. But here's a question for you: who are the best quarterbacks in the SEC?
You probably shouldn't be asking me because I'm going to say Jalen Milroe.
Because should we talk about that game? Because
Yeah.
that dude is not it. Texas beat Alabama by double digits in Alabama. I still think Alabama had the advantage almost everywhere besides quarterback and wide receiver. Texas had a true freshman running back. Their defense is not better than Alabama's. I think the difference was the gap between Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe was huge, and Xavier Worthy and Sanders are a lot better than Alabama's wide receivers. Alabama's had bad wide receivers, not bad, but just not the Jalen Waddles, the Devontae Smiths,
Yeah.
all of those guys. They haven't been there the last 2 seasons.
You didn't even mention Adonai Mitchell.
Oh,
Excuse me.
yes.
2
I was waiting for
touchdowns.
you.
Anytime touchdown, I called them out on the show last episode. I also said maybe sprinkle a little bit on 2 touchdowns at 8-1. That hit, so I hope you guys listened there. That was a nice payday for me. Quinn Ewers, like you said, 24-38, 349, and 3 touchdowns. He's now moved up to the second favorite for Heisman. Caleb Williams plus 400, Ewers plus 750, Penix Jr. out of Washington plus 850. Everyone else double digits.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be the worst quarterback class in SEC history. I was listening to a podcast today where they went through all the SEC quarterbacks, and this is the first time that there's not going to be a first or second round quarterback taken from the SEC in the draft in like a super long time. It's pretty rough that KJ Jefferson from Arkansas might be the second best quarterback in that conference.
Yeah, and he's not good. So
no. I mean, Jackson Dart is okay.
Hey, no love for my boy Graham Mertz. Come on, he's in the SEC.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
It's just weird. And another thing too is it doesn't seem coincidental that Texas and USC's rise kind of coincides with Bama and Clemson kind of falling off or taking a step back. Those schools all recruit for this or compete for the same talent. And obviously Lincoln Riley matters and Steve Sarkisian's doing a good job, but the NIL factor is huge. Austin, Texas, and Los Angeles just have way better NIL opportunities than Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Clemson, South Carolina. And that was kind of what I always wondered was going to happen, is if these bigger cities, bigger markets are going to eventually start to take over, not just in recruiting, but now in the transfer portal too. It just seems like those two schools are cleaning up in the transfer portal. And it's like there's just not enough talent to go around for Bama to have a Tua every year now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. It's still a little early for me to see if the SEC is going to be good or not. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Alabama is 25-1 to make the college football playoff now, so they probably can't lose another game. So even if they make the SEC championship game and lose to Georgia, I still think they'd be out. Unless
they have to run the table.
So
if they play the way they did on Saturday, they're going to win 9 games.
Yeah. Which is good for anyone who took the Bama under and listened to you.
Me. One other thing I want to say is I think this draft class for quarterbacks is shaping up to be pretty good. That Duke quarterback, he's looked really good. I mean, I know they played some scrub team, but he put up monster stats again. Obviously, Quinn Ewers, Drake May already had the hype coming in. He's still delivering. And then Caleb Williams still looks like the best college football player in the world. So I think there might be 4 first-round quarterbacks right now that you can say are confidently going to be first-round QBs.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy's looking good to Michigan.
Got him too.
Riley Leonard, like you said, from Duke, and then the 2 obvious guys. So, it'll be interesting to see who the Bears are going to end up selecting next year in the draft. Hopefully, it's a good one.
We want Caleb.
We want good luck.
Yeah, we're not going to get pick 1 probably, unless the Panthers just really, really suck this year. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else college football related? We're sitting here right at an hour.
Um, no, not really. I think this week, I just feel like every week you learn a little bit about teams. I try not to overreact a ton to week one, week two. Things change in college football and the NFL, obviously. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like you're putting together a puzzle. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's close off with the show with a little 5 minutes of baseball here. Just going around the league real quick. Division winners, we have the Orioles to win the division. They're minus 900. The same number as Gunner is to win Rookie of the Year. Brewers are 3 games up on the Cubs. They are minus 490 to win the division. Cubs plus 340. But the Cubs, I heard they pulled up somebody today. You want to give us a little rundown on PCA?
They're calling up my favorite prospect in the Cubs system over the last year or two. Probably drove people crazy talking about him, but Pete Crow Armstrong. He's a center fielder from California. He's like 21 years old, lefty. He's the best defensive center field prospect in the league, and like graded wise, like in since Kevin Kiermaier type range. Um, he's going to be special defensively. He has elite speed. It'll come down to his bat to see what type of value he brings. If he's the difference between being like a perennial all star and just being an above average big leaguer. He just has such a high floor that there's like almost zero bust potential as long as he stays healthy. Um, but with all that said, oh, he does hit for a little power too. He'll probably be a 15 to 20 homer guy. But with all that said, I am going to pump the brakes. I'm not going to be Debbie Downer. If people are expecting him to come up and play every day, it's not going to happen. He is he is young. They are not going to give him a lot of at bats. He's going to come up and be kind of like a utility man for a team making a playoff push and just kind of get his feet wet. So he'll be a defensive replacement late in games. He'll be a pinch runner. I really don't think you're going to see him in the starting lineup a ton unless someone just gets hurt or goes really cold. I really just don't see them benching Talkman or Bellinger, Hapsia, those type of guys to get him at bats. But he's going to keep his rookie eligibility. So he'll be a rookie next year and can go for the rookie of the year. Well,
Yeah,
preseason hype for rookie of the year will be crazy.
he'll probably have one of the best odds to win Rookie of the Year looking ahead for
Yeah.
sure. But
He's going to be bet on a lot.
I had the FanGraph odds up here for best odds to make the playoffs. So the Cubs are sitting right around 85% to win the wild card. It's really just kind of 3 teams fighting for those last 2 spots in Arizona, San Francisco, Miami, and the Reds. Do you feel pretty good about where the Cubs are at? I know they just got swept by the D-backs, or they lost the
They
first
did not.
three. They lost the first 3.
Yeah, they lost. They lost the first 3. They won on Sunday. Um, the identity of this Cubs team, in my opinion, is that it's just a mental toughness and a resilience. They have this tendency to avoid these. They have moments where they look like absolute dog shit, but they don't let they make sure they stay as moments. They don't become extended streaks. They don't have these like just awful stretches where you start thinking, oh, I've had a few moments this year where I've felt like, oh, things might start to unravel, and then they just don't. So I'm going to give them the benefit and the doubt and just kind of start believing that they're going to always just figure it out. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, but I am confident they're going to make the playoffs. And if they can keep it within 3 going into the last series of the year, they probably have to sweep it or something. But it'd be just a lot of fun to kind of have like a final series against Milwaukee for the division.
Yeah, definitely. There's just nothing better than meaningful baseball in September and October for your ball club. So don't take it for granted for sure. Um, Going on the AL side, the Rangers are like a complete train wreck. I'm not feeling great about their chances to even make the playoffs. I think that the Blue Jays could actually get them beat out. Do you have any thoughts there?
The Blue Jays don't really have any pitching. I feel like they have a good lineup, but they don't really have the pitching to scare me. Um, I mean, they might make the playoffs. I just don't think if they got in, they would really do anything. I think I'd be more afraid to play the Rangers if I were an AL team, just because I think that they still have Scherzer and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Real quick though, the Mariners are 3-7, as well as the Rangers are 3-7 in their last 10. Blue Jays are 8-2. So the wild card is Tampa Bay's got the first spot up by 8.5. They pretty much have that locked in. Then Toronto's up 1 on the Mariners, who are up a half game on the Rangers. So it's going to be close. We might get a game 163 as well.
That would be fun. I haven't seen a game 163, I feel like, since 2018.
Yeah, I can't remember one. Could be wrong though. Mookie Betts, closing out with some awards here. Mookie Betts got hurt. So he was on crutches the other day. So Acuna went to minus 800 to win NL MVP, and Mookie Betts is up to plus 500. So that's about over. The only race, I guess, with any sort of late season implications would be Blake Snell to win the NL Cy Young. He's minus 220. Justin Steele is plus 220, and Zach Gallen is plus 800. How do you see that closing out?
I'm sticking with Steele. I don't really see the point in laying the odds with Blake Snell
But
at minus 220.
Blake Snell's going to go out. He's going to walk 4 people. He's going to strand 90% of his batters and just get lucky for his last 4 starts of the year. It's crazy.
I need to look at his next 3 starts. He needs to blow up once. I just feel like for whatever reason, he doesn't go long into games, and it kind of prevents his ERA from getting skewed a little bit. I don't know. I think he's good. He's probably deserves to be the favorite. I just wouldn't bet on him to finish the year as the favorite.
Yeah.
Gallen, I think, is a lot more talented than him. He just had a little rough stretch there, and now he's hot again.
I will say at the end of last episode, I said to look at betting the Astros to beat Blake Snell. That did not happen. So Blake Snell pitched fine. But his next start is this Wednesday, the 13th, at the LA Dodgers. So it's going to be another test. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule's built in a little bit to these odds. So they must think that if he was playing a pretty easy stretch of lineups, maybe his odds would be even longer or shorter. I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see. Baseball's weird. If there's anything we've learned following these awards, is that things change in a hurry. And I don't know. I'm just riding with Steele because I feel like I trust him the most because I watched him pitch every start of his career almost.
Yeah, that's fair. And unbiasedly, I do think Justin Steele has a great chance. He's gonna the Cubs need him to ball out the last month of the year. So
he's gonna have quote unquote moments. Like Blake Snell's pitching for nothing right now, and Steele actually is pitching for something. So he's going to be able to have these opportunities. It could be to lock the wild card up. It could be to lock the division. It could be in Milwaukee. He's going to have all these opportunities to have a Cy Young moment that Blake Snell will never have because his team's out of it.
Yep, I 100% agree.
Same with Zach Gallen. He's going to have opportunities too, and he went 9 scoreless in his last outing. So. And I was against another team in the wild card race, so he's having his moments lately too. Zach Wheeler, I think he's 4th. Probably not going to happen for him, but he's having a really great season, so I want to give him some love.
Yeah, he's 90-1, but he'd be a look next year. You can probably get him in the mid-teens, I'm guessing. Okay, I think that's pretty much all we got. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone listening. This has been another episode of Bet GPT. Tell your friends. Give us 5 stars. We gotta get some more hype around us this upcoming football season because we have a lot of winners to give out and we want everyone to hear them. So, also want to give a quick shout out to the 3 Points podcast. We haven't talked about them in a couple episodes, but Nicholas, Brady, and Charlie are killing it over there. We'll link their podcast on our Twitter as well. But also one thing, real quick, we forgot to do this. We need our NFL power rankings. We have to release them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And actually, you know what? Maybe let's not release them. I'm just gonna put them on the Twitter. Put it on Twitter. We'll let everyone digest it, and we'll start Thursday's show off with it, and then we'll start breaking down the lines. Does that sound all right?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay.
I'm sure. I know ours are going to be different and they're going to be a little controversial. So if you're listening to this, feel free to write us anything you want to say about how you disagree. We'll read it on the air. We just want to hear other people's feedback. It's through 1 week. So just to clarify, we're not doing this as of like in a vacuum. It's kind of like you can use projecting out to the future, right? Like we're looking at this like we're not only looking at week one. It's like your roster, your how we think you're going to do in the future, things like that. It's not resume based, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not gonna bump the Chiefs down just because Travis Kelce missed a game.
Yeah.
So stuff like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We'll catch you guys next time. This has been another episode of Bet GPT. Thanks.